The Dayspring from on high hath visited us, to give light unto them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. Dayspring is an effort to be in touch with good people who love God and who believe that the Bible is His Word. Dayspring is brought to you by your neighbors from Churches of Christ in this area. And now, visit with us as we draw near to God.
Thank you for being our guest today. We enjoy your company. We're delighted that we can open our Bible in peace, without fear, and read its context and share and live by it. It's good to have a Bible. I'm reading a passage today from the book of Nehemiah. Perhaps you'd like to turn there and read along with us. Nehemiah chapter 6, the first few verses in that chapter. Thus, the text says, "Now it came to pass, when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me mischief or harm. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease, while I leave it and come down to you? Yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered after the same manner. Then sent Sanballat his servant unto me in like manner the 5th time, with an open letter in his hand, wherein was written, It is reported among the heathen, and Gashmu saith it, that thou and the Jews think to rebel, for which cause thou buildest the wall, that thou mayest be their king, according to their words. And thou hast also appointed prophets to preach of these at Jerusalem, saying, There is a king in Judah. And now shall it be reported to the king according to these words. Come now, therefore, and let us take counsel together. Nehemiah had received a commission from the king of Persia to go back out of captivity and rebuild the wall around the city of Jerusalem. It had been torn down. The enemies of God's people did not like the fact that that wall was being rebuilt, that Jerusalem was going to stage a comeback. They wanted to keep that city in ruins, was less a threat to them that way. So they did everything they could to hinder that work. They made fun of it. They attacked it. And now they are making an effort to get a compromise out of Nehemiah. Nehemiah, let's sit down together and talk about this. They wanted to talk him out of it. But Nehemiah's response was, I am doing a great work, and I therefore cannot come down to you. I'm doing a great work. Not great, but perhaps at that time the greatest work. And he said, I cannot afford to be diverted. My attention must not be distracted from this work that is at hand. Now that was not just a boast on the part of Nehemiah. He was not just bragging. It really was a great work. It was God's work. God had commissioned through the king of Persia that it be done. It was God's work, and therefore it was greater than any other work in the secular world. Nehemiah was not just making a claim. He was not just throwing up a smokescreen to these people. He said, I am doing a great work. I'm at it. I'm busy. I'm engaged. But they hoped to compromise with Nehemiah. If they could get him to interrupt his work and come and sit down with them, they would perhaps convince him that it was foolish for him to finish the work and would discourage him and cause him to give up. But Nehemiah absolutely refused, after they'd done this same thing a number of times in a row. And it didn't work. They finally sent Nehemiah a letter saying, the rumor is that you're planning to become the king of this nation and rebel against Persia. If that rumor gets back to the king of Persia, you'll be in deep trouble. Therefore, come sit down with us and let's talk about what we can do about it. And so Nehemiah responded to them by saying, I'm doing a great work, and for that reason I cannot come down to you. I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you? That man had his head on his shoulders in the right place. He understood what was at stake. I'm too busy to waste time talking to you. Perhaps some of you have had the opportunity to serve on committees that did not function. And you know what it means to sit down with a committee and talk about a project. Everybody on that committee has some idea. All of those ideas are thrown into the hopper. They're stirred up. Talk for an hour about great things that need to be done, some things we can undertake. But at the close of that meeting, all that was accomplished was talk. There was no effort put forth. There were no plans to get it done. Just talked and talked and talked. Frustrating. They wanted to get Nehemiah in a discussion like that. Talk and talk and talk, but nothing to be done. There are always those people who, when there's work to be done, offer some kind of an excuse. I can't do that. I do not have the time to engage in it. I do not feel well. I don't know how. On and on those excuses go, while a great work, an important work, is idle. Nothing's being done because we offer excuses. We don't want to go to work. And, you hear somebody say, whose responsibility is it to get this thing organized? If somebody will tell me what to do, I'll be glad to do it, but I don't know what to do. That's just another way of getting around, getting the work done. Don't want to go do it in the first place, therefore somebody's got to tell me what to do, when to start and where to start, and all other matters. And the work doesn't get done. And there are always people who enjoy fussing and arguing. When the work comes up for discussion, if there's anything negative that can be said about it, here's a person who will say, I don't believe it'll work. I don't think we'll ever get it done this way. I see too many obstacles. And if somebody says, let's do it, this person argues, he fusses, he causes all kind of disturbance. And secretly, down underneath it all, he does not want to do anything. He doesn't want to get the work done. And there is this idea currently among many religious people that I'd rather be entertained than to work for the Lord. I want somebody to entertain me. I'd like to have a program that is entertaining, pleasing to me, while the real work of that religious organization is undone. All of the people in that organization who should be workers for the Lord are enjoying themselves in some function that's perhaps paid for by that religious organization. But their real purpose, the work which they have been assigned to do, doesn't get done. Too busy entertaining one another. It's possible, it's just possible, that some people, maybe even in leadership roles, are lazy. Don't want to do anything. I'd rather be, as the prophet said, at ease in Zion. Just take life easy as it comes. Don't get upset. Don't get all disturbed thinking there's work to be done and that there's an emergency. Don't do that. Let's just all sit back and relax and enjoy the ride. And the work is idle. Many, many diversions, things that distract us from the work, things that go on around us that we'd rather be involved with and give attention to than to actually roll up our sleeves and work for the Lord. Now, when Nehemiah was interrupted by these people who came to him and said, let's go over in this other village and sit down and talk about this thing, Nehemiah said, I don't have time to do that. I cannot leave my work to come and talk with you, because I'm doing a great work, and the very nature of that work will not let me take off and leave it idle while I come sit down and visit with you. I am doing a great work. Those words should be uttered by every Christian. Every person who styles himself or herself a Christian ought to be able to say, I'm doing a great work for the Lord, and mean it, and be involved in it. I'm doing a great work for the Lord. Matthew chapter 20, verse 1. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that was an householder, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. Notice, if you will, Christ, the householder, is looking for people to labor in his vineyard. He doesn't need bosses. He doesn't need observers. He needs people who are willing to work. And he goes out to find just that kind of people, workers, in his vineyard. In the book of Mark, in Mark chapter 13 and verse 34, Jesus said, the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants, and to every man his work. Jesus went away. He ascended back to heaven. That's where he is now. But in leaving, he gave every person his work. If I'm a follower of Christ, he has assigned me work to do. I can find that in the manual. I'm supposed to be a worker for the Lord. He hires laborers into his vineyard, and he's given to every man his work. You know, Jesus said in John chapter 9, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day, for the night cometh when no man can work. Now, if I'm a follower of Jesus, I must be a worker also, because Jesus worked. He was a worker. He said, I came to do the will of my Father. He was busy about his Father's business. If I'm not busy in his work, then I'm not a follower of Jesus, because Jesus led the way for us. He gave us an example. He went about doing good. He worked tirelessly in the Lord's service while he was here on this earth. I want to be like Christ. I want to follow him. And if I follow him, I will be a worker for the Lord. Christians who accept that responsibility realize that we're building for eternity. The Bible says in Matthew 16 and verse 26 that a man who loses his soul has lost his most precious possession. What is a man profited if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Well, there are those people. Souls are lost while we sit with folded hands doing nothing to reach them with the gospel. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 58, Paul said to Christians in the city of Corinth, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. So every Christian is to be a worker. We're all to work for him. Now, a great work, that's the work we're involved in. It's true Nehemiah was involved in a great work, rebuilding the wall around the city of Jerusalem, but we're involved in a greater work than he ever thought about. The great work that we are involved in is the Lord's work here on this earth. To be sure, when the Lord left, he gave every man his work. He assigned a work for his people to accomplish before he comes again. One day he shall return, and he shall call upon us to give an account of whether we've done his work or not. Think with me carefully about this subject. What is the work the Lord has given his people to do? First of all, number one on that list, he has assigned Christians the responsibility of spreading the gospel to every creature. It is to be carried worldwide. Overlook no one. Spread the gospel of Christ. Jesus once said, say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh the harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already unto harvest. Don't delay your beginning in his kingdom to work. The work is there waiting on you. The fields are white to harvest. When Jesus saw the multitude, he was moved with compassion, because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then said he to his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. The Lord needs workers to gather the harvest of souls that are lost. The church is referred to as the pillar and ground of the truth. That is, it supports the truth. And of course, you know the Lord's great commission, when he said, go ye therefore and teach all nations. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. That is such an awesome task. It should make us tremble. How can we get that done? He put that responsibility on our shoulders, so that when we read a verse like Acts chapter 8 and verse 4 that says of those early Christians, they that were scattered abroad went everywhere preaching the word. They carried the gospel with them no matter where they went. And I'm so impressed with a statement made by Paul in Colossians chapter 1 and verse 23, where he pointed out that already at that point in time, the gospel was preached unto every nation under heaven. They got it done. It no doubt was a tireless thing. Not just the apostles, but others who were Christians. Every waking hour, they spent spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, so that Solomon could say, "He that wins souls is wise." What is the work the Lord has given us to do? The greatest work in all the world. Number one, carrying the gospel to those who are lost. That is the greatest work, to reach the lost with the gospel. We must take that assignment seriously. Number two, we are told that it is the responsibility of God's people to care for those who are needy, less fortunate than ourselves. John said, "Whoso hath this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him?" My little children, let us love, not in word, neither in tongue, but in deed or in truth. And that's the sentiment James expressed in James chapter 2 at about verse 14, when he said, "If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, Be ye warmed and filled, depart in peace. Notwithstanding, ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit?" Doesn't profit anything. We talk about it, but are we responding to those people who need us? Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. Visit, take care of those who are in affliction, fatherless and widows and others. And so, in Acts chapter 11, at verse 27, Luke's record says, "In these days came prophets from Jerusalem unto Antioch, and there stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit that there should be a great dearth throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. Then the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea, which also they did, and sent it unto the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul." They got their heads together and said, "We need to help those people who are caught up in that famine." And then they did it. They didn't just talk about it and plan it, they did it. And they sent that contribution to the elders of the church in Jerusalem with the intention that it be distributed to those who were in need. It is a work of the Lord's church to take care of needy people. "Let him that stole steal no more, but let him labor working with his hands the thing that's good, that he may have to give to them that have need." Ephesians 4 and verse 28. So the Bible teaches us that we are to do good to all men. There are poor, there are needy, there are people who do not have enough food, who do not have adequate clothing, whose shelter is not good, who need us. And we must be aware of that to the point that we respond. It is the work the Lord gave his people to do. And with Nehemiah we must say, "I'm doing a great work, and I do not have time to be diverted with something else." Spreading the gospel, caring for the needy, and then building up the local church, edifying each member of the church. Romans 14, verse 19, the apostle wrote, "Let us therefore follow after things which make for peace, and things wherewith one may edify another." We're to edify each other, that is, to build up each other. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, speaking, teaching, and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, admonishing one another. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24. Consider one another to provoke unto love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. Now, good friend, taking that setting in the Old Testament, I'm doing a great work and therefore I cannot come down, and using it in a setting today among the Lord's people, we must be able to say, I'm doing a great work and I cannot be interrupted in carrying the gospel, in taking care of needy people, and in edifying every Christian so we can go to heaven when we die. There's the work that the Lord has assigned His people. If you look around us, you'll find religious people engaged in almost every activity except those today. We've enjoyed our brief visit. Thank you for being our guests. Until the next time, may the goodness of God be yours in full measure.
You've been watching Dayspring. Dayspring is brought to you by your friends in local area churches of Christ. To request a free CD of today's lesson, you may contact us at Dayspring, Post Office Box 453, Tupelo, Mississippi, 38802, 0453. There is no cost for this offer. You will not be asked for financial support. You can also phone your request toll-free at 1-866-842-4139. Or you can go to our website at dayspringtv.com. Thank you for visiting with us on Dayspring. May your joy be full. May the peace of God rule in your hearts. And may the light of Christ brighten heaven's way.